Welcome to Old Luxury Brand. If you enjoy this type of content, then subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on any of our latest and greatest uploads. In 1899, he formed the Detroit Automobile Company, which quickly failed after only a few vehicles were produced. Henry and some of his original investors regrouped and formed the Henry Ford Company, which quickly ran into problems as well. In 1902, Henry was dismissed by his board of directors from the company that carried his name because of his inability to bring a car to production. The company was reorganized as the Cadillac Motor Car Company under the engineering leadership of Henry Leland. In 1903, Henry Ford felt he was ready to market an automobile for the public, and the Ford Motor Company was incorporated, this time with a mere $28,000 in cash put up by a new group of investors. That original $28,000 investment was spent down to less than $300 before the company's first car was sold, but from that time on, the company was on its way to success. Ford worked his way through the alphabet, producing various cars from A to S. Some were large touring cars whose development was demanded by his stockholders. Some, like the Ford Model N, were small, simple, and practical cars meant to have a wider appeal. In October of 1908, Henry Ford proclaimed, quote, "I will build a motor car for the great multitude." He said this in announcing the birth of the Model T. In the 19 years of the Model T's existence, Ford built more than 15 million of the durable little cars, and they were sold around the world. In fact, in their time, Model Ts would come to represent half of all the cars on the road worldwide. Imagine it today if in every parking lot across the land, half of all the cars parked between the lines were Ford Fusions or Escapes. The Model T then had a tremendous impact on the way people live. It can be argued that the T was the chief instrument of one of the greatest and most rapid changes in the lives of common people in history, and it did this in less than 2 decades. For example, farmers were no longer isolated on remote farms. The Model T heralded an age of mechanization for the farm. Model Ts were used to transport the farmer's family to town, but more importantly, to transport his products to market. Ts were even used to power the implements of farm production. Soon, Henry Ford was producing a small tractor, the Fordson, which continued the transition on the farm that the Model T had launched. As a result, the horse disappeared so rapidly that the transfer of acreage from hay to other crops caused an agricultural revolution. The cycle of innovation and change, one of ever-increasing yields and better methods of modern power farming, was born. Farmers and city dwellers alike could afford a Model T because it was affordable. It was affordable because of the rate at which it was built. The remarkable birth rate of Model T Fords was made possible by the moving assembly line and by the thousands of people who toiled under harsh and demanding conditions, standing in their place along that assembly line, doing their repetitive task over and over again, hour upon hour, shift upon shift, week in and month out. Unskilled workers cost less. They were paid less than skilled tradesmen, and they were easier to replace. On Henry Ford's assembly line, you kept up with the pace of production or you were gone. No individual was so important that they were indispensable. The miracle of production was that Ford was able to deliver parts, subassemblies, and assemblies with precise timing to a constantly moving main assembly line. This reduced the time to produce a complete chassis from over 12 hours to about an hour and a half. The subdivision of labor into small, easily repeated steps and the coordination of a multitude of operations produced huge gains in productivity. But that productivity came at a cost. The work was monotonous, hot, dirty, and often dangerous. As the popularity of the Model T increased, the factory went to 2 9-hour shifts, 6 days per week. You could have your place on Henry Ford's assembly line for the princely sum of $2.34 per day. But be forewarned, when 108 hours of production per week could not keep up with demand, Henry and his supervisors would gradually speed up the line. By 1913, daily absences along the line were such that with 13,000 workers toiling away at the various assembly operations, Henry Ford needed over 1,000 extra men just to fill in for those who did not turn up for work. Further, the labor turnover at the Highland Park plant was an astounding 370%. This meant that for every position in the plant, Ford needed to hire 4 men, hoping one would work out and stay in the job for more than a few weeks or months. Ford went through more than 52,000 men to keep a workforce of only 14,000 working full-time. In 1913, the majority of line workers were from Eastern and Southern Europe, and their supervisors were American-born. Language became a barrier to production. Drastic measures were necessary if Henry Ford was to keep up the rate of production that would meet the ever-expanding demand for his Model T. When confronted with the problem by his managers, Henry Ford declared that they simply needed to make more men. On January 12, 1914, the Ford Motor Company announced that it would pay eligible workers a minimum wage of $5 per day. For Ford workers, it meant that their wage was going to more than double. Ford also announced that it was going to reduce the workday from 9 hours to 8, giving each employee 1 more hour outside the factory each day. This would also permit the conversion of the factory from 2 daily shifts to a 3-shift-per-day operation. How could Henry Ford do this? The lower cost of production from the mass manufacturing of the Model T had created surplus income, estimated at over $10 million. Ford felt this money should go back to his workers in the hope that they would be more willing to work under the harsh conditions of the assembly line. By paying higher wages, he felt he was also creating a whole new class of buyers for his products, his employees. And with that, we've reached the end of this video all about Henry Ford's legacy. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for content just like it.